The planet was called Vexthor. It was the latest biological nightmare discovered by the Galactic Council's star scouting team, and the newest, terrifying puzzle for lead scientist Kelrix to solve. The orbital scan had just finished, and his assistants were insisting that some insane self-aware species was actively hunting down there. Kelrix had no idea that today he would experience firsthand what the surface of a death world was truly like, and learn why that one rakeless species called humans enjoyed hunting there. The bridge of the scientific vessel, Stellar Wanderer, was quiet, its pristine white walls curved in organic shapes that offered both structural integrity and psychological comfort. As the first Zephyrian ship exclusively designed to conduct searches on death worlds, every surface was reinforced with triple-layered ceramide plating. Every system backed up 3 times over, and the atmosphere recyclers could filter out toxins that would kill most galactic citizens in seconds. "We are sure they are humans, Chief. There is no doubt the ship and the toxic swamps below us belongs to them." Varek's voice was soft. Like all Zephyrians, Varek stood barely chest-high to most galactic species. His purple skin was an atypical color for a life form. His silver hair, more like fine filaments than the coarse strands humans possessed, was tied back in the traditional Zephyrian knot, and his 4-fingered hands gripped a datapad with more strength than needed. Despite their small stature and delicate appearance, Zephyrians shared a basic bipedal shape that wasn't that different from that of the humans they were talking about. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head with sensory organs clustered at the top. Kelrix raised a purple eyebrow. His skepticism immediately began searching for a more reasonable explanation. "A human ship, perhaps," he conceded, his gaze landing on Varek. "But that doesn't mean humans themselves are present. This vessel could be a drone remotely operated from a safe distance. Even humans, reckless as they are, surely wouldn't physically venture onto a Class SS death world. The atmospheric composition alone would require constant suit integrity. One breach and they'd be dissolved in minutes." The rest of the research team had been listening from their stations, and now they moved with a synchronized defiance of scientists who had worked together for years. Varek led the approach with Nissa and Thorin flanking him, each raising their datapads with screens facing Kelrix in a tight formation that spoke of their desire to prove their boss wrong. Nissa, with her silver hair styled in elaborate braids, held up her pad steady despite the tremor in her hands. The optical footage she displayed showed crystal-clear images captured by their long-range sensors. 3 humans without protective suits moving through a fungal forest, where each mushroom kept dripped acid capable of eating through the skin. Of their own species, the humans weren't fleeing or hiding. They were stalking something. Weapons raised, moving with the smoothness of experienced hunters. One human held up a closed fist, and the others immediately froze, demonstrating a level of teamwork typical of a team with extensive practice in such environments. Thorin, the team's youngest member but their most gifted technician, presented his data at the same time. His screen showed cascading waterfalls of signal intercepts, RADIO communications between human teams scattered across the planet's surface. The tech signatures were unmistakable. Short-range encrypted bursts designed to penetrate the planets. Dense vegetation, emergency beacons on standby. Vital sign monitors transmitting real-time biological data. 20 distinct communication nodes, Thorin reported. All active, all mobile, all definitely originating from human pattern equipment. Varek himself held the most damning evidence. His pad displayed transcriptions of intercepted communications. The human language translated into neat Zephyrian script. "Alpha Team, we got fresh tracks. Looks like a mature Vex the Ravager. Maybe 8 tons. Sarah, you and Marcus circle wide. We'll drive it toward the canyon." Another transmission. "Base. Camp, this is Delta 7. We bagged the specimen. Request extraction at coordinates 97 Alpha." And tell the doc to prep the lab. This one's organs are still alive somehow, might be valuable. And perhaps most tellingly, weather's getting rough. Acid rain in 2 hours. All teams finish up and get to shelter. Remember, don't be afraid to be called a coward and wear your protective suits. Kelrick stared at the evidence, his highly developed brain struggling to process what his eyes were seeing. Throughout his career, he had studied dozens of species, cataloged their behaviors, understood their motivations. But this defied everything he knew about intelligent life. Why would any sapient species willingly subject themselves to such a hostile environment? The humans weren't here by accident, weren't refugees or prisoners. They had come here deliberately, equipped specifically for hunting in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens in seconds. His mind raced through possibilities: religious obligation, resource scarcity, population pressure. But none of these explanations fit the casual enthusiasm evident in their communications. The bridge fell silent as Kelrix processed the information, his purple fingers drumming against his command console in a pattern that his team recognized as deep thought. Finally he straightened, decision crystallizing in his mind. "Very well," he said slowly. "We cannot deny the data. But this raises a new question, one even more valuable than our original survey objectives. If we are truly to understand Vexter's ecosystem, we must also understand why humans choose to hunt within it." He paused, meeting each team member's eyes in turn. "I propose we study the humans from up close. This does not contradict our mission. Indeed, understanding why a sapient species would willingly subject themselves to the torture of a death world could prove invaluable to our research." The reaction was immediate and visceral. Niss's purple skin paled to an almost white shade while Thorin dropped his datapad with a clatter that echoed through the bridge. "Sir," Varek's voice cracked slightly, "you're suggesting planetary entry. Actual atmospheric penetration of a Class SS death world. The humidity alone will try to corrode our hull," Nissa added, her scientific mind already cataloging the dangers. "The spore count could clog our filters and the fungal networks." "The Stellar Wanderer was designed for this," Kelrix interrupted. "Our hull uses the new adaptive ceramite that actually grows stronger under acidic conditions. We don't need the filters if we keep cycling our internal atmosphere and our cloaking systems." He gestured to the relevant console. "Will keep us invisible to both the local fauna and our human subjects. We are not some cobbled-together survey vessel. We are the pinnacle of Zephyrian engineering, specifically created to study worlds like this." The fear in the room was obvious, but Kelrix could see his words having an effect. These were scientists after all, driven by the same curiosity that had led them to join this mission in the first place. One by one they returned to their stations, hands moving across controls with renewed purpose. "Initiating planetary entry protocols," Thorin announced, his voice steadier now. "Atmospheric analysis confirms all shields can handle the composition. Descent vector calculated to bring us down near the highest concentration of human signals." The Stellar Wanderer shuddered slightly as it began its descent, the familiar vibration of atmospheric entry filling the bridge. Kelrix watched the external monitors as the black of space gave way to the sickly yellow-green of Vexter's toxic atmosphere. The ship's cloaking systems engaged silently, bending light and radiation around their hull to render them invisible to all common detection methods. Descent was surprisingly smooth. The ship's designers had done their work well, and the adaptive systems were already adjusting to the planet's specific conditions. "Altitude 5,000 meters and descending," Varek reported. "Hull integrity at 100%. Cloak stable, no detection from surface sources." The view through the main viewport was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Vexter's fungal forest stretched to the horizon, a riot of colors that shouldn't exist in nature. Violent purples, electric blues, and poisonous greens. Spore clouds drifted like fog between the massive mushroom caps. And in the distance, something large disturbed the canopy, sending up a shower of acid droplets that glittered in the dim sunlight. 1,000 meters, Varek continued. 500, 200. Holding at 100 meters above the canopy level. Relief washed through the bridge like a physical thing. They had done it, successfully entered the atmosphere of a death world, and positioned themselves for optimal observation. Kelrix allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. Everything was going perfectly. Kelrix's moment of satisfaction was precisely timed to maximize the universe's sense of irony. He had just opened his mouth to instruct the team to initiate human behavior study when Nissa's voice cut through the bridge atmosphere with a note of confusion that quickly shifted to concern. "Sir, we're experiencing altitude loss. Minor but consistent, approximately 3 centimeters per second. Sensor malfunction," Thorin suggested, already running diagnostics. "The atmospheric interference could be affecting our—" "No," Kelrix interrupted. Something catching his eye at the viewport. A black dot no bigger than his fingernail marred the otherwise pristine transparent wall. He moved closer, a certain itch of curiosity overcoming caution. As he leaned in, the dot resolved into something that made his blood freeze in his veins. It was a worm, if worms could have wings. The creature was perhaps 5 centimeters long, its segmented body moving with peristaltic motions as it secreted something that was actually etching the viewport. Tiny wings, gossamer thin, but apparently functional, kept it attached to the smooth surface. "Alert all stations." Kelrix's voice cracked across the bridge. "We have biological contact with the hull." "Nissa, full biological scan immediately." The team erupted into motion, but it was Varek who delivered the news that turned concern into horror. "Sir, exterior sensors are detecting ... detecting ... His voice failed him for a moment. "Thousands of contacts, no, tens of thousands. There. All over the hull." "How is that possible?" Thorin's fingers flew across his console. "The cloak should make us invisible to they don't have eyes," Nissa reported, her biological scanners working overtime. "No optical organs at all. They're not seeing us. They're just flying randomly trying to find something to eat. We were simply in their path." The weight Kelrix's mind, even in crisis, couldn't help but calculate. Each worm perhaps weighed a few grams, insignificant individually, but tens of thousands. The ship's hovering systems were precisely calibrated, designed to maintain position with minimal energy expenditure. They weren't prepared for an additional ton or more of randomly distributed weight. "Initiate emergency ascent," Kelrix ordered. "Get us back to orbit." "Negative response from navigation AI," Thorin reported, panic creeping into his voice. "Safety protocols are preventing engine start. The weight differential is outside acceptable parameters. It won't risk an uncontrolled burn." The viewport was darkening now, more worms landing every second, their bodies creating a writhing mass of biological matter intent on devouring their ship. Kelrix stared at the display showing their altitude, 95 meters. 90. 85. The perfect ship, the pinnacle of Zephyrian engineering being brought down by mindless worms. The irony wasn't lost on him, though he had no time to appreciate it. "Manual override," Kelrix commanded. "Bypass the safety protocols." "I can't." Thorin's hands shook as he worked. "The AI has locked out manual control. It's protecting us from ourselves. It calculates a manual burn would result in catastrophic structural." The impact wasn't the dramatic crash Kelrix had anticipated. Instead, it was almost gentle. The stellar wanderer settling into the fungal canopy like a tired swimmer finally, allowing themselves to sink. The viewports went dark as they pushed through the mushroom caps. Bioluminescent fluid splashing across the hull. The ship tilted slightly, groaned, and then came to rest with a final shudder that spoke of finality. For a moment, nobody moved. The bridge lights flickered, emergency power engaging as primary systems registered the damage. Then training kicked in, and the crew scattered to their emergency stations. Hull breach in sections 7 and 12, Nyssa reported. Her voice mechanical with shock. Nothing major. The Vorms are actually sealing the holes with their secretions. But we're not flying again. Primary thrust assembly is clogged with biological matter, Thorin finished. Secondary systems are offline. The power core is stable, but without thrust. He didn't need to finish. Communications? Kelrix asked, though he suspected the answer. Primary array was sheared off during descent. Backup systems are functioning, but can't penetrate the giant mushrooms. We're cut off, sir. Kelrix sank into his command chair, the weight of his decision crushing down on him like the planet's oppressive atmosphere. His idea, his insistence, and now his crew, brilliant scientists who had trusted him, were stranded on a death world with no way home. The bitter taste of failure was like acid in his mouth, and for a moment he understood why humans had phrases about the road to hell being paved with good intentions. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, the words inadequate but necessary. This is my fault. I led us here, and now we survive," Varrock interrupted, surprising everyone with the steel in his voice. "Blame can wait, solutions cannot." Kelrix looked at his assistant, loyal Varrock, who had followed him through a dozen expeditions. "What do you suggest?" "The humans," Varrock said simply. "They're surviving here. If anyone can help us, it's them." "Help? U.S.?" Nissa's voice was incredulous. "They're hunters, predators. What makes you think they'll help us rather than—" "What?" Kelrix stood, determination crystallizing in his mind. "Kill us? Study us? We're scientists. We knew the risks when we signed on. And right now, those hunters are our only hope of seeing home again." He looked around the bridge, meeting each team member's eyes. "I'll go find the humans, explain our situation, and beg for their assistance." "You're not going alone," Varrock moved to stand beside him. "Two have better chances than one, and someone needs to document this for scientific posterity." The rest of the crew exchanged glances, and Kelrix could read their thoughts as clearly as if they were displayed on a monitor. They blamed him. How? Could they not? But more than that, they doubted. Doubted his judgment, doubted his ability to save them, doubted whether he would even return. The unspoken accusations lingered in the air like Vexthur's toxic spores. "I'll need a volunteer to maintain the ship's systems while we're gone," Kelrix said, his voice carefully neutral. Silence. Finally, Thorin raised a hand. "I'll keep the power core stable and the filters running." "But sir," he paused, then seemed to decide something. "Just don't promise anything you can't deliver." The preparation was mechanical, ritualistic. Kelrix and Varrock moved to the equipment bay where the emergency environmental suits waited. Another marvel of Zephyrian engineering that Kelrix prayed would live up to its specifications. The suits were form-fitting, designed to maximize mobility, while providing protection against everything from radiation to biological hazards. Kelrix sealed himself in, checking and double-checking every connection. The heads-up display turned on, showing atmospheric readings that would have killed an unprotected Zephyrian in seconds. "Filters operational," Varrock reported, his voice tiny through the suit's communication system. "Estimated operational time: 72 hours before replacement needed. 72 hours to find the humans and convince them to help." Kelrix almost laughed at the absurdity of it. They returned to the bridge for final preparations. Kelrix stood before his crew, wanting to say something inspiring, something that would give them hope. "I'll return with help," he said finally, the words falling flat in the recycled air. Nobody replied. Nyssa busied herself with her console. Thorin stared down at his hands. The others suddenly found urgent tasks that demanded their immediate attention. The blame was unspoken, but unmistakable. He had led them to this death, and now he was abandoning them to beg for help from insane predators. The airlocks cycled with a finality that made Kelrix's heart skip a beat. Then they were outside, and the reality of Vexthor hit them like a hard blow. Even through the suit's filters, the air smelled wrong. Thick with rot and acid and life so aggressive, it was indistinguishable from death. The fungal forest towered. Around them, each mushroom capped the size of a building, dripping substances that hissed and smoked where they hit the ground. Kelrix and Varek moved away from the ship, their steps careful on the spongy ground that seemed to move with hidden life. Their handguns, small projectile weapons designed more for last resort defense than actual combat, felt like toys in their hands. From deeper in the forest came sounds that belonged in nightmares, growls that resonated in frequencies that made their teeth ache, chittering calls that spoke of too many legs and too many teeth. And underneath it all, a constant rustle of movement that suggested they were already being watched. Which direction? Varek asked, his scanner showing multiple human signals, but no clear path through the fungal maze. Kelrix consulted his own equipment, trying to plot a route that would avoid the worst of the biological signatures. Northeast, there's a human camp approximately 2 kilometers away. If we can just... A roar split the air, so close that Kelrix felt it in his chest. Something massive moved in the canopy above, sending a rain of acid droplets that hissed against their suits. In the distance, something answered the call, and then another and another, until the forest echoed with the sounds of awakening predators. Kelrix and Varek shared a look through their visors, the same thought passing between them. 2 kilometers might as well be 2 light years. But they had no choice. Together they plunged deeper into the nightmare forest, the growls and chittering growing closer with each step, their tiny handguns clutched in trembling hands as they searched desperately for the only beings insane enough to call this hell home, and possibly brave enough to help them escape it. The fungal forest seemed to close in around them with every step. Kelrix's scanner showed they'd covered barely half a kilometer in what felt like hours. Their progress slowed by the need to avoid the writhing vines that tried to ensnare their legs and the pools of acid that bubbled up from the spongy ground. The constant chirping and growling from unseen predators had become a horrifying soundtrack to their journey. Movement ahead, Varek whispered, his voice tight with fear. Large biological signature, 50 meters. Kelrix raised his hand for silence, peering through the bioluminous haze. What he saw made his blood turn to ice water in his veins. The creature that emerged from behind a massive mushroom stalk defied rational description. A spider-like monstrosity that stood 6 times their height, its body covered in hundreds of eyes that blinked independently, creating a nauseating ripple effect across its hairy carapace. Each of its 8 legs ended in serrated claws that left deep gouges in the ground, and its mandibles dripped with a substance that sizzled when it hit the forest floor. "Don't move," Kelrix breathed. But the creature's multitude of eyes had already begun focusing in their direction, dozens at a time, swiveling to lock onto their position. The spider thing took a step forward, the ground trembling under its weight. Varek's hand shook as he raised his pathetic handgun. "Sir, I don't think—" "Shoot," Kelrix hissed. "Aim for the eyes." Their weapons discharged with tiny pops that seemed laughable in the vast forest. The projectiles struck the creature's hide, and several eyes burst in sprays of luminescent fluid. The spider reared back, letting out a shriek that was more ultrasonic than audible, making their ears ache even through their suits. "Run!" Kelrix grabbed Varek's arm, pulling him toward a cluster of smaller mushrooms. They dove behind the largest cap, just as one of the spider's legs swept through where they had been standing, leaving a gouge deep enough to hide a body. The creature circled their hiding spot, its remaining eyes scanning methodically. Kelrix could hear its breathing, a wet sound like bellows filled with acid. One leg probed near the mushroom, the claw coming within centimeters of Vurek's suit. They pressed themselves deeper into the shadows, hardly daring to breathe. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, something else caught the spider's attention, a flutter of wings in the canopy above. With another ultrasonic shriek, it scuttled away, moving with horrifying speed for something so large. They waited another full minute before emerging, both trembling from the adrenaline rush. That thing, Vurek gasped, could have killed us without even noticing. I know, Kelrix said simply. They pressed on, checking their scanners obsessively. The human signals were stronger now, perhaps only 300 meters away. Through gaps in the fungal canopy, Kelrix could make out flashes of unnatural light, electric lanterns perhaps, or maybe fire. There, Vurek pointed. In a clearing ahead, 3 figures moved around what looked like a temporary camp. Even from this distance, their confidence was evident. No fearful glances at the forest, no huddled defensive positions. They moved like they owned this nightmare world. How do we approach? Vurek asked. Everything I've read about humans suggests that they can be aggressive toward strangers. Kelrix considered their options. We need to appear non-threatening. Lower our weapons, keep our hands visible, perhaps a verbal greeting from a distance. Their debate grew heated, voices rising as they argued the merits of various approach strategies. Kelrix favored directness, while Vurek insisted on a more ritualistic method he had read about involving something called a handshake. A rustling in the underbrush silenced them both. From the thick vegetation emerged another nightmare, centipede. The length of a shuttlecraft, its segmented body undulating with muscular movement. But it wasn't just the legs that made Kelrix's mind reel. Running along its back were dozens of antenna-like appendages, each one moving independently, tasting the air. The alien centipede reared up, its front quarter rising like a tower of malice, its mandibles large enough to bisect a Zephyrian with ease, pressing together with a sound like breaking bones. Back, Kelrix hissed, both of them stumbling away from the monstrosity. Keep moving back. They fired their weapons as they retreated, the small projectiles pinging uselessly off the creature's armored segments. The centipede pursued, its 100 legs carrying it forward in a continuous wave of motion. The antennae on its back all pointed forward now, locked onto them like targeting arrays. Kelrix felt his back hit something solid, a tree trunk wider than their ship. They were trapped. The centipede reared higher, preparing to strike, its shadow falling over them like a promise of death. Then the forest exploded into motion. From the canopy above, something massive dropped onto the centipede. A snake that defied comprehension, its body as thick as the tree they were cowered against. The centipede's shriek of rage became one of panic as the snake's coils tightened, segments cracking like gunshots. Kelrix and Vurek could only stare in shock at the titanic battle unfolding mere meters away. The irony wasn't lost on them, saved from one predator by an even larger one. The snake's mouth opened impossibly wide, revealing fangs like swords, and began to swallow the still writhing centipede head first. Sir, Vurek stammered, raising his gun with shaking hands. Kelrix did the same, and they both fired wildly. Eyes squeezed shut in pure terror, fingers pulling triggers until their weapons clicked empty. The sound of their shots was pathetic against the crushing and swallowing sounds of the feeding snake. Then suddenly, silence. Kelrix cracked one eye open. The snake lay motionless on the ground, the centipede still half protruding from its mouth. A massive hole had appeared in the snake's head, far too large to have been made by their small weapons. Did we? Vurek began, opening his own eyes. No way our guns did that, a new voice said, causing both Zephyrians to jump. A human stood at the edge of the clearing, a massive rifle still smoking in his hands. He was everything the species' reputation suggested, tall, muscular, and radiating an aura of lethality. That there's a .50 caliber hole. Your pea shooters. Might have tickled it some, though. Kelrix and Varek stared at each other in panic, seeking confirmation that this ridiculous sequence of events had actually occurred. First the spider, then the centipede, then the snake, and now a human who had appeared from nowhere like some kind of apex predator ghost. The human slung his rifle over his shoulder and walked closer, seemingly unconcerned by the massive corpses or the two terrified aliens. "So," he said, tilting his head with what might have been amusement, "who are the two idiots wearing spacesuits?" The casual vulgarity broke through their shock. Kelrix immediately dropped to his knees, pulling Varek down with him. "Please," he gasped, bowing his head in what he hoped was a gesture of submission that transcended species. "We need help. Our ship crashed. Our crew is stranded. We'll do anything." Varek, recovering from his shock, joined in the display, pressing his forehead to the spongy ground. "We beg of your mercy, great hunter. We are but humble scientists who—" "Easy there," the human interrupted, and Kelrix could hear the amusement in his voice. "Get up, both of you. No need for all the dramatic nonsense." He reached down and helped them to their feet with surprising gentleness. "Look, we're not going to leave you out here to die. That wouldn't be very human of us, would it?" Two more humans emerged from the forest, weapons at the ready, but relaxed. They moved with the same confidence, treating the snake corpse like it was nothing more than fallen furniture to step around. "Found these two about to be snake food," the first human called to his companions. "Says their ship crashed. Zephyrians by the look of them. Long way from home, aren't you?" One of the newcomers observed. "Please," Kelrix said, trying to regain some dignity. "I am lead scientist Kelrix, and this is my assistant Varek. We were conducting a survey when— save the formal stuff for later," the first human said, extending his hand. "I'm Drake. The ugly one there is Connor, and the quiet one's Blake. Come on. Let's get you back to camp before something else decides to take a bite." The walk to the human camp was surreal. The three hunters moved through the deadly forest like it was a park, occasionally gesturing at various hazards with the same casual manner one might point out interesting architecture. Their camp, when they reached it, was deceptively simple. Weapons of large caliber leaned against supply crates, the remains of some creature roasted over a contained fire, and electronics that looked both highly advanced and roughly used scattered about. "Shit," Drake gestured to some crates arranged like furniture. "So," he said, "your ship crashed. How many in your crew?" 5 others, Kelrix replied gratefully, sinking onto a crate. "They're with the ship about 2 kilometers southeast." The stellar wanderer was brought down by some kind of flying worms. "Ah, acid boars," Connor interrupted, nodding knowingly. "Yeah, they'll do that. Stupid things eat anything. We'll help you get your people out in the morning. Too dangerous to move a large group at night." Kelrix felt a wave of relief so strong it made him dizzy. Thank you so much. I must ask though, why are you here? What possible reason could humans have for being on this death world?" Drake laughed, a booming sound that seemed to challenge the forest to do something about it. "You ever try hunting on Earth these days? Everything's either protected, tagged, or so used to humans, it barely runs anymore. I mean, what's the challenge in that? Plus," Connor added, cleaning his rifle with practiced motions, "nothing on Earth needs a .50 cal to bring down. Out here, sometimes .50 cal feels like underkill." Blake, who had been quiet until now, grinned. "And there's no regulations, no permits, no seasons, no bag limits. We can blow up whatever we want. Don't forget the best part," Drake said with a wink. "Gets me away from the real apex predator, my wife. She thinks I'm at a corporate retreat." The others laughed, and even Kelrix found himself relaxing slightly. "But your protective suits," Kelrix said. "We saw footage of humans without them." "Oh, those." Connor pulled up his sleeve, revealing skin marked with old acid scars. Yeah, the acid stings like hell, but our skin's tougher than most. We can take it for a while. Usually only wear the full suits during heavy rain, or if we're going to a really nasty area. One more thing, Drake said, his expression turning businesslike. We make good money selling specimens to alien researchers. No offense, but weak species like yours and others pay top credit for things we bag here. Organs, tissue samples, live specimens sometimes. It's a lucrative side business. No offense taken, Kelrix assured him, though privately he wondered at a species that considered hunting nightmares a profitable hobby. They talked through the night, the humans sharing stories that alternated between terrifying and hilarious. They seemed to find genuine joy in their insane pursuits, treating near-death experiences like fond memories. When dawn finally broke through the canopy, casting the forest in shades of sickly yellow, the humans were true to their word. All right, Drake announced, checking his weapons. Let's go get your people. The journey back seemed almost anticlimactic with the humans leading. Creatures that had terrorized Kelrix and Varric simply avoided the group, recognizing apex predators when they saw them. In less than an hour, they reached the crash site, or rather, where the crash site should have been. Connor said, lowering his rifle. Where's your ship? Where the Stellar Wanderer had crashed, there was now only a massive creature, easily the size of a building, curled up and sleepy. Its body was covered in thick scales that shifted color with each breath, and its stomach was distended in a way that suggested a very recent, very large meal. Ah, you got to be kidding me, Blake muttered. That thing ate your ship. Kelrix could only stare in horror. Somewhere in that creature's stomach were his crew, his ship, everything. Drake sighed and checked his ammunition. Well, boys, looks like we're doing an emergency extraction. Connor, you got your heavy ordnance? Always, Connor said, producing explosives from his pack with disturbing enthusiasm. Your people better be grateful, Drake said to Kelrix. This is going to be messy. 3 months later, Kelrix stood in his new office at the Zephyrian Scientific Institute, gazing out at the peaceful skyline of his home world. The official report of the Vexter incident sat on his desk, heavily edited to remove the more embarrassing details. His crew had survived, pulled from the belly of the beast by humans who treated the whole thing like a mildly challenging Tuesday. They'd even managed to save most of the ship's data cores, along with enough organs from the creature to fund their department for the next decade. None of his old crew would speak to him except Varric, who had developed what he called a healthy respect for human insanity. The others had transferred to other departments, other ships anywhere that would take them far from Kelrix and his dangerous ideas. But as he read the latest message on his personal communicator, Drake sending pictures from their latest hunt, featuring a creature that looked like a cross between a shark and volcano, Kelrix found himself smiling. He had made friends among the humans, even if their ideas of entertainment remained utterly incomprehensible. Next time you want to study dangerous wildlife, Drake had written, just ask us first. We probably already killed it, and we definitely have video. Kelrix filed the message away and returned to his work. He had a presentation to prepare on why the Galactic Council should absolutely under no circumstances attempt to colonize planets where humans were already hunting. Some species, he had learned, were best appreciated from a very safe